My name is Elena and I am 27 years old. My days began long before the sun even thought about stretching its golden rays over the city of Buenos Aires. My small apartment, tucked away on a bustling side street, was a symphony of early morning sounds: the faint clatter of a neighbor making coffee, the distant rumble of the first bus, and the ever-present hum of a city waking up. I would pull myself out of bed, the old springs groaning in protest, and make my way to the tiny kitchen. A cup of strong mate tea was my ritual, a moment of quiet before the rush. My job was at a small panaderia, a bakery, a place filled with the warm, comforting scent of fresh bread and sweet pastries. I loved the smell, it was a dream I held close, but my days were spent behind the counter, serving others, not creating. I worked long hours, standing on my feet until they ached, my uniform smelling of flour and sugar by the end of each shift. My dreams felt as fragile as the thin pastries we sold, constantly threatening to crumble. I imagined having my own little place one day, a small corner where I could bake my grandmother's recipes, filling the air with her special blend of cinnamon and hope. But that dream felt impossibly far away, buried under the weight of everyday life. Each peso I earned was carefully counted, split between rent, food, and sending a little bit home to my abuela, my grandmother, who lived in a small village far away. My shoes were worn thin, and I often skipped lunch to make sure there was enough. There was a voice inside me, a quiet, persistent whisper, my internal nemesis, that told me I was stuck, that this was my fate, that I would always be just barely getting by, never truly reaching for the warmth of my dreams. That voice would grow louder on the long bus rides home, especially when I saw bright lights and happy families, reminding me of all I didn't have. One afternoon, the world seemed to tilt on its axis. My landlord, a stern man who rarely smiled, delivered a notice. The rent for my small apartment was going up, not by a little, but by so much that it felt like a cruel joke. I stared at the numbers, my heart sinking lower and lower into my chest. There was no way I could afford it. My meticulously planned budget, already stretched thin, now snapped completely. The voice inside me, the internal nemesis, roared, "See!" It seemed to say, "You can't even keep the little you have. You're failing." Panic began to set in, cold and sharp. Where would I go? How could I tell Abuela I couldn't send her money anymore? My small corner of peace, my apartment, was about to be snatched away. I tried everything I could think of to make things better. I asked for more hours at the bakery, but the owner regretfully shook her head, explaining that business was slow. I walked for miles, delivering resumes to every shop and cafe, desperate for a second job, any job. I even tried selling some of my few precious belongings online, my grandmother's old radio, a vase my mother had given me, but no one seemed interested. Each rejection, each unanswered call, felt like a punch to the gut. My exhaustion was a constant companion, a heavy cloak that never left my shoulders. Sleep offered little rest, filled with anxious dreams of eviction notices and empty cupboards. One afternoon, after another day of endless rejections, a pipe burst in my apartment bathroom. Water streamed everywhere, soaking the floor, ruining the old rug, and leaving me with an unexpected, expensive repair bill. It was the final straw. I sat on the bus bench, waiting for my ride home, the late afternoon sun doing little to warm the icy knot of despair in my stomach. The world felt overwhelmingly heavy, pressing down on me, crushing my spirit. I buried my face in my hands, hot tears streaming down my cheeks, blurring the vibrant colors of the city around me. I sobbed silently, my shoulders shaking, feeling utterly and completely alone. I didn't know it then, but someone saw me that day, a stranger, a witness to my quiet, desperate breakdown. Days turned into weeks, and though I somehow found a temporary solution for the pipe and managed to scrape by for the rent increase by cutting every single expense possible, the joy had gone out of everything. I was just surviving, moving through life like a ghost. One Monday morning, still heavy with worry, I walked to my usual bus stop. I sat down on the bench, pulling my jacket tighter against the cool morning air. And then I saw it. A fresh bouquet of flowers, vibrant and beautiful, sat on the bench beside me. It wasn't just a few roadside blooms, these were carefully chosen, a mix of bright daisies and soft, fragrant roses, tied with a simple twine. Attached was a small, handwritten note. My hands trembled as I picked it up. It simply read, "Keep going, you are stronger than you know." There was no name, no explanation, just those few powerful words. My breath hitched. I looked around, but the street was busy with strangers. No one paid me any mind. Who could have left them? Why? A warmth, small but insistent, began to spread through my chest. For the first time in what felt like forever, I felt seen. I hugged the flowers to me, their delicate scent filling my senses, and I carried them to work, placing them carefully on a shelf behind the counter. That Monday was a little brighter. The next Monday, the same thing happened. Another fresh bouquet, another anonymous note, this time reading, "You are not alone." And then it became a beautiful, mysterious ritual. Every Monday, without fail, a fresh bouquet would be waiting for me at the bus stop. It didn't solve my financial problems or make my job any easier, but it nourished my spirit in a way I hadn't realized was starving. Each week, those flowers were a lifeline, a gentle reminder that kindness existed, that someone somewhere cared enough to make my world a little brighter. The internal nemesis, that voice of doubt, began to shrink, overpowered by the quiet strength of those anonymous gifts. The flowers gave me the courage to take a leap of faith. I remembered my dream of my own bakery, my grandmother's recipes. I had saved a tiny bit, a meager amount that had felt like nothing before, but now, fueled by the hope of the flowers, it felt like a fortune. I found a tiny stall at a local artisan market, a small space that was affordable. It wasn't a grand bakery, but it was a start. I put in my notice at the panaderia and threw myself into my new venture, baking small batches of my grandmother's empanadas and pastelitos, pastries filled with sweet quince paste. It was hard work, long days and even longer nights, but it was my work. My little stall, called Elena's Dulces, slowly began to find its rhythm. People loved the authentic flavors, the stories I shared about my grandmother. I made friends with other vendors, a community of dreamers and doers. I even found a small, shared room in a different part of the city, closer to the market, which meant a new bus route. I worried the flowers would stop, that my anonymous benefactor wouldn't find me. But they did. One Monday, at my new bus stop, there they were, a beautiful bouquet, waiting for me. And on that day, the note was just one word: bloom. It brought tears to my eyes, but these were tears of profound gratitude and hope. The flowers had helped me bloom. Now, with my own little business growing, I found myself looking for ways to pay that kindness forward. I remembered how those simple flowers had lifted my spirit when I felt invisible. So, when I saw someone looking down, a tired face at the market, a lonely person on the bus, I would discreetly leave a small pastry on their bench or a little encouraging note tucked under a coffee cup, just as the stranger had done for me. I wanted to be that quiet comfort for someone else. My life was still a lot of hard work, but it was filled with purpose and a warmth I hadn't known before. One particularly busy Monday at the market, after I had carefully arranged a fresh bouquet I had received earlier at my stall, I decided to leave a special pastry and a note at my old bus stop, just in case my anonymous friends still passed by there. I wrote, "Thank you for the flowers. They changed everything." I walked to the old stop, left the small package, and hurried back to my stall. The next Monday, there was my usual bouquet at my current bus stop. But this time, nestled amongst the petals, was a small, familiar note. My heart pounded as I opened it. It read, "You are welcome, keep shining." A wide, joyful smile spread across my face. The connection was confirmed, a beautiful, silent testament to the power of human kindness. It was a reminder that even in the darkest moments, hope can bloom, often arriving in the most unexpected and beautiful ways, showing us that we are never truly alone and that things truly do get better.